Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Front Page, a show put together by Keeler Community College for the spring 2023 semester here at the college and shown on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, as well as the college's radio station WIN 89.1. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have back in the studio the director of the telecommunications department here at the college, as well as Professor Steve Keeler, as well as film director and Brunelle visiting scholar Loch Phillips, to discuss his documentary, Utica, The Last Refuge, about the refugees from Sudan in central New York. We'll be talking about what he's talking to students about, an opportunity for you to go see the visiting scholar, present his documentary downtown at the Auburn Public Theater, and talk in general about the refugee crisis in central New York, especially as we're talking about Ukrainians who are immigrating here now. First of all, welcome back to the studio, but into the studio, back for you, but also for coming to Cuga and sharing the wealth of knowledge. It's great to have you here.
No, it's great to be here.
So where are you originally from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
You don't have that southern twang.
Southern
twang.
I don't have that Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Forget about it. How's that sound?
So can you tell us a little bit about the film?
Mm-hmm.
It's Utica, The Last Refuge. I'm saying it correctly, I hope. What's it about?
It's about the remarkable story that refugee resettlement is in Utica. They've really turned this dying Rust Belt city around. Utica was at one point up in about 105,000 people, and it fell apart across the 70s and into the 80s and even the 90s as the population diminished to just under 60,000. So it was in real danger of not being a metropolitan area at a certain point. And then the influx of refugees has really stemmed the tide of that, and now they're back up to about 65,000, and about 20% of the population is refugees and their children.
And how do they pick on Utica? Originally Utica, by many of the names of Syracuse, Utica, Auburn, they were all settled by immigrants in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You had these waves. I mean, if you look at the prison here, you can do concentric circles of when the British came, the Irish, the Italians, the Czechs, Russians, etc. How did they end up in Utica, the Sudanese?
It's, the biggest populations there are Bosnian and Burmese. And the Burmese, like most refugees, are from warm weather climates. So Utica's not a natural choice for them.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't love the snow. They've never seen it before, most of them. And they come here. But Utica's kind of a perfect storm of rents were way down, so there's cheap places to live. The Bosnians were really into construction. You can completely see if you drive around Utica what they've done, because they brought stucco, of all things. So you see these stucco exteriors, you're like, they did that place, they did that place, they did that place. And that really helped people see what refugees were bringing and get it going.
So how did you get this idea?
I had been making films about refugees for International International Rescue Committee, IRC. It's one of the biggest agencies in the United States, and come to find out how good a program refugee resettlement is in the United States. And then my cameraman, who's 20 years younger than me, told me about Utica. I went to Hamilton College, which is right near there. And when I left in the 80s, Utica was at its real low point, and I saw nothing good. And he said, well, you should come up and check it out now, because refugees are really turning it around. And we came up for a visit, and wow, we saw what was happening.
Thought is about 6,500 Sudanese have come there?
No, I mean, not primarily Sudanese. The biggest populations are Bosnian and Burmese, and they've started bringing in Africans, so there's a lot of Liberians, Somalis, and Sudanese.
So what's your connection to Cuba?
Steve.
Okay.
Steve actually did some of the drone. I got introduced to Steve by Dave Shinatry. They went to school together. Steve did some drone shots on the film.
Moderator for the Ivory Tower half hour with WCNY.
Right.
So how did you become involved in part of this documentary?
Well, Dave Shinatry, who's the host of the Ivory Tower, he and Locke are alums of Hamilton College. And Dave is a professor at Utica College now after a long career as a writer and correspondent for the NBC Network News. And Dave became a professor at Utica College, connected with Locke at a Hamilton event. One thing led to another, and Dave became one of the producers of the documentary. And as it turns out, Dave and I were at lunch, and we were talking about the documentary. And he was talking about he had a drone operator who couldn't show up to do something. It was no longer available. And I said, oh, well, I have a drone license and a drone. I said, yeah, if you need somebody to fill in, I'll fill in. And, lo and behold, a couple of months later, I got a call. Can you come out to Utica and shoot some drone footage?
And we should say we have a drone program here. I know you were on about a month ago.
Right.
You talked a little bit about it, but for those who may not know in the audience, what is the college's drone program?
We offer courses in drone photography and drone videography and in drone licensing. I teach those courses, and students really enjoy them, and they're getting a lot out of them. And as you know, we are just outside the upstate New York drone corridor, so drones are on everybody's mind up here, and there's a lot of opportunities for drone operators or people who are trained in using drones. So it's been a great boon for the college.
So we're not showing clips. People have to go to the Auburn Public Theater on Thursday, the 23rd, to go see it.
Yep.
But what did you do drone-wise for the documentary?
Steve shot a lot of the intro. There's not a lot of drone shots in the film, I wouldn't say, but the introduction is entirely drone shots because we wanted people to see all the different places where refugees were having an impact. So we wanted to sort of let you know this is about the city at large. And so Steve did a lot of these drone shots, and I like to fly them low. So it's a little more dangerous.
Okay.
Drone. The thing with drones is they're aerial shots, and in the past, you had to hire a plane or a helicopter for aerial shots. And what aerial shots do is they establish a locale and establish a scene, and that's why you often see them at the beginning of a film or the beginning of a scene in a film, because they establish where we are. And that's exactly how Loch and his crew use those shots, and I think that's it's great. It's something I show students in the drone classes so they get a sense of how drone footage is used.
So is this your first non-IRC documentary?
No, I've made I've worked for nonprofits a lot. I've worked for ESPN, done a lot of sports stuff too. So not my first one, but this is my first feature-length self-produced.
Okay, so that's where I'm going with this one. So
Yeah.
How do you put something like this together?
Well, Dave Shinatry was pretty key, actually. Like a guy who grew up in Utica and knew about refugees in the area. So he just got us into all kinds of places. As soon as I started making this with Adam Bedian, the director of photography, I knew that I had to get Dave involved, and it turned out to be pretty invaluable.
How much does something like this cost?
Well, if everybody had gotten paid, this is probably like a $700,000, $800,000 documentary. But in fact, we didn't really get paid that much. So we raised about $130,000.
So that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So how do you raise money for a documentary?
We did it via crowdfunding campaign largely, and I had thought we'd get some grants, but we did not.
So when you raise money for that, how do you hope that you will recover that money? Do you think you will recover that money?
Well, you always hope. You're always hopeful. I mean, I hoped we would get a TV deal. We're still hopeful for that.
For a Netflix or a Hulu to show
something
it?
like that, yeah. It's a good PBS documentary. I wish they would bite on it. But we're doing lots of screenings upstate. It's going well. We've got a week-long run in Albany happening right now at the landmark Spectrum 8, so that's good. That's a paying situation. And we got a lot of educational things coming up. We have an educational distributor, and we're going to recoup some money, but certainly not all of it.
So one of the reasons you're here at Cayuga is you are the Brunelle Visiting Scholar. So I want to ask you a little bit about what is the Brunelle Visiting Scholar program here?
Well, the Brunelle Visiting Scholar Program allows the college to bring in visiting artists in the arts for an extended period of time, like a semester or for a year. And so in the past, we've brought in musicians, writers, artists, and filmmakers. And it's just been a great experience. And the idea of the Brunelle Visiting Scholar is that they work with groups of students. And the visiting scholar, has a certain area of expertise and knowledge. They share that with the students and teach the students. And then they also have an obligation to share their work with the public. Thus, the screening that we're doing Thursday, March 23rd at 6:30 at the Auburn Public Theater, where Loch will show Utica: The Last Refuge, and then do a Q&A afterwards.
So, for those who do not know, who was Robert Brunelle?
So, Bob Brunelle was a longtime English professor at the college. He was the first community college professor in the history of New York State community colleges to work at the same community college for 50 years. He was a much beloved English teacher here.
Did you work with him?
I did. I worked with Bob for 16 years from the time I got here until the time Bob unfortunately passed away, which was 2003. It's been 20 years. And as it turned out, well, after Professor Brunelle passed away, he had left in his bequest a substantial amount of money to the college for this Brunelle Visiting Scholar, Visiting Artist program. And it's really enabled the college to bring in artists and scholars that we could never have brought in before, especially for these extended periods of time. We just didn't have the resources to do it, but now we do. And except for 3 years during the pandemic, we've brought in someone every year from 2004 until now.
So, not the first documentarian.
Right.
I think the first one I might have had in this studio before, Aileen Jarrett, who did Blueberry Soup.
Right.
First of all, who was she? She was one of your students.
Right. Eileen Jarrett was an alum in the telecom media program who became a noted documentary filmmaker, and her big film was Blueberry Soup, about the...
it's not a cooking show.
Right. It was about the crowdsourced constitution in the country of Iceland. It's an amazing story. She, like Locke, spent several years making it. Won numerous awards, was shown all over the country. And she was, like Locke, just a great filmmaker to bring to the college and, share their expertise with the students.
Have you had other documentarians as well?
No. The first person we brought in was a poet, Chris Kennedy. And Chris taught a poetry course to students here. And then we had our audio students make a spoken word poetry album with him, which was absolutely amazing. It was called Memory Unit, and it was poems about Alzheimer's disease. It was really, really fascinating. We've brought in two musicians. We brought in Samate, an African sort of ethno-pop composer, performer, who worked with students, who worked with our music students. We brought in Mike Debanowitz, a noted saxophone player, who did songwriting and performance workshops throughout the semester with our students. We've had a couple of songwriters come in who've worked with our music students on songwriting. It's really been a very vibrant program with a real, sort of wide array of different kinds of artists. I mean, it's really...
So across all of the SOMA, the School of Media.
Exactly. School of Media and the Arts.
And the Arts.
Right.
Across there and going into some of the other...
Well, exactly, because what we look at is, if we look at SOMA, the School of Media and the Arts, what are the programs? It's the Media Telecom program, which is filmmaking and video making and audio making. It's our music program, it's our art program, and it's our writing program, and it's our theater program. So we try to, so what we do is we bring in visiting artists who are in those fields.
So what is the director doing this week with your students?
Well, Locke is teaching a documentary course. He started in January with the students. The students will have to complete a documentary project, each one doing their own, by the end of the semester. This week he's meeting with the students, looking at footage, giving them advice about where to go next with their footage. And then at the end of the semester, we'll have an event, again at the Auburn Public Theater, in which we'll screen the student documentaries.
Now,
that'll be a nice event.
Will you be grading these?
I guess so.
Oh, okay. All right.
So if you students are paying attention to this show right now, get busy.
So how did you get into this? Was this your track where you said, I want to go into documentary films?
No, I started off wanting to make fiction films, but I just generally got bounced into documentary. I found I really liked it. I really like running around and meeting people and telling their stories. So I've been pretty lucky to
So
travel
how'd you get
a lot.
involved with IRC?
I worked for UNICEF, was really where I started. So I was traveling for the United Nations. I started as an editor, and then I started traveling the world and really liked it. And next thing you know, here I am. And IRC is, so a lot of these international organizations are all tied together. So once you get into one place, you kind of have a resume for all of them.
And how long does a documentary, how long did this, the Utica documentary take?
We started shooting in 2017 and we finished in 2021. So 4 to 5 years, 3 years of shooting pretty much. And
Why so long?
I mean, you shoot a lot to get a story. And we wanted to, so we're following a Sudanese family and we wanted them to be set up. And it took a while for them to get set up. We wanted to show how the program works. And so after about 2.5 years, he got the job that would close out the film that said, okay, he's sort of set now. And meanwhile, Trump came in and was reducing numbers of incoming refugees, which put a lot of stress on the refugee center. So there's all these different storylines that weave together, you know.
So how long is the film?
The film is about 2 hours long.
And how many hours of film did you take?
We shot about 250 hours total.
So who makes those decisions about what goes?
Well, ultimately me, but I had, Adam was the lead editor. We had a whole team, 4 of us editing different scenes, and it was a long process.
And is there, so let's go back to 2017.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
You got this idea.
Yeah.
Is it scripted? How do you say, so what's the name of the family?
They're the Azines.
So how do you find the Azines and get them committed to this, and then coming up with a start, 3 acts, a start, a middle, and
right.
I'm assuming that's what you have here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and that is the last of my artistic pointers for today.
Okay. Well, this is a legit documentary in the sense that we didn't really pick a family. We met them at the airport, and so they land at Syracuse International Airport, and they're greeted by a camera crew. We try to keep it pretty low key. But I'm sure they thought this is like the reality television world that is the United States or something like that. And you'll see when we met them at the airport, there's a cutaway to a guy sitting there because that's when we asked them if we could do this. And they said
they didn't
yes.
know you were coming to Hancock.
No. So we talked to them there. We asked them, and we asked them again every time we were with them for the next couple weeks, to say, look, this is going to be a lot of shooting. We had Abdel Shakur, who is from the center, who speaks their language, talk to them about why they should do this. They're representing refugees.
Was there a concurrent track where you were filming other families too? We
did film one other family, and that kind of petered out, and we never really got a good foothold with them. But the Azines were kind enough to let us continue, and they're the centerpiece of the story.
So is there a point where you said, okay, this is where we are in Act 1, where they've come off the plane, you're talking to them. What was your goal in the end? What did you want to show people in the end?
Well, refugee resettlement's been this huge success in Utica, and we wanted to show how they do their job of resettling people. And this is a family that's from rural Sudan. He lived in a mud hut. So this is a tougher than usual family to resettle because they're not familiar with the economic system here. I mean, Nasruddin left Sudan, his village in Sudan, probably about 15, 16, and he was raising cattle. He was a pastoralist, a farmer, and he's coming here, and he ends up working in a wire factory, and I'm following him around on his first day on that job. I said, I don't think I could do this job very easily. So to me, it's a testament to him and the refugee center that this all works out. That's what they do. They're really good at it.
I don't want to give out the ending because I hate spoilers, but are you still in contact with them?
Yes.
And how large a family did he have?
They came here, and his wife Nada was pregnant, so she gave birth about 5 or 6 months in, which is also great. We have an American citizen already.
Extra cast member.
Yeah, and he had two young kids. They're doing well. They're both in school. I think that some of the kids are really smart, and you're going to see that's what really happens with the refugees. The next generation down thrives. They know what their parents did to get them here, and they take their experience here very seriously, and they really kick butt.
So before getting to the Auburn Public Theater and what the college is doing down there, what is your goal of this film?
Well, we would really like to show it in areas where there is refugee resettlement or that refugee resettlement is planned, and say, guys, this is what you're into. If you identify yourself as a welcoming community, here's what you can expect that to look like.
As a success.
Yeah, as a success.
It's a value add.
It's a value add. It's a little bit more long-term thinking. I mean, you do have to sink some money into the refugees at first, but after 10 years or so, that they really start paying off big dividends in terms of what.
So with the Bosnians and the Sudanese there, what did Utica and that county have to come up with? Did they have to change their mindset?
I think it happened very slowly. They started bringing Eurasians out of the Vietnam War. Religious institutions were doing this as a humanitarian good. They started to notice that it was working for them as well. The Bosnians really came in with the Yugoslavian Civil War, and that would be in the 90s, and that really showed.
So it's almost
people
every
what this
20
could do.
years there's a new wave.
Yeah, well, and now there's wave after wave after wave. So you have the Afghans came, and then now the Ukrainians are coming, and it's a little bit dicey because they're not technically classified as refugees, which is a legal definition. So the Ukrainians and the Afghans who are here don't have an automatic path to citizenship. Makes it very complicated for the refugee center in Utica.
So how did the Sudanese? So why were the Sudanese different?
It's the government's deciding. The Trump administration was very antagonistic towards refugees and immigrants in general. So they wanted to bring those numbers down. And most people recognize that actually immigration is a real plus for the United States.
So the Afghans and the Ukrainians. I asked this because on Thursday, we were talking about this before.
Yeah.
Thursday we're bringing in several emigres
Yeah.
who have left. The war has just marked the Russian invasion about a year now.
Yeah.
So they're coming in here, and I know there's a story in the Citizen this week about Literacy Volunteers of America and how they're working with that. How does the community start putting those resources there?
Yeah.
And what should Auburn think about?
Well, the Ukrainians is a pretty good deal for us because these guys are very familiar with the kinds of work that are done. They're done here. They're middle class. It's a very developed country, so it's really going to be great here.
I want to come back to the refugees in just a second. I want to talk about the Auburn Public Theater because the public can go see this. This is open to the public.
It's on Thursday, the 23rd at 6:30. The screening of Utica, the Last Refuge, is open to the public. Anybody can come, and it's free.
And what's the planned program for the evening?
We're going to show the film, and then when the film is over, we're going to have a question and answer session with Loch, where people can ask anything they want about the film or about the refugee resettlement program in Utica.
So there's a discussion afterwards, and how long do you think the evening will go? Starts at 6:30.
I think about 2.5 hours. 6:30 to 9.
And again, this is free. You just go downtown to 108
Genesee Street. It's free and open to the public.
So what type of questions are you getting from students now about, not necessarily the refugees, but if there's some interesting questions on that, that's cool, but about putting a film together?
Well, people want to know, a lot how you come up with these ideas for a film. And we knew that it was a very successful story. And I've long wanted to tell positive stories because I really believe in the work that orgs do, that nonprofits do, and how they're there sitting with a population that needs their help for years to help them go. And refugees are a great example because they're really ready to go. You give them a little bit of help, they go a long way with it. And so I thought it was a beautiful story. And I want to say, in these troubled times, there's a lot of stuff that we do really well. And I knew that the stories that people who are anti-immigration tell about refugees and immigrants, that they're dangerous, that they're a big economic drain, are not true. And I just thought, let's make a film that shows what really happens and why
Odd for a nation of immigrants
Yeah,
to talk about that,
yeah.
as President Kennedy would
Yeah,
have said.
that's really true. That's really true.
60 years ago.
And Utica is made up of lots of Polish, Irish, Italian. So they knew that people come here. They're very entrepreneurial. They come here with an incredible work ethic, and they bring a sense of community.
So have you been, whether it's here at Cayuga or you said you're over in Albany and you made these presentations on a couple of other college campuses, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Have people pitched you some interesting ideas?
Pitched me? Not so much. I mean, not so much. I'm sort of working on another refugee-centered film in Western Pennsylvania right now.
So I was going to ask, what is next?
Yeah, we're working on that, but
is there drone work?
Steve,
Pennsylvania. There will be drone work.
There will be.
There's always drone work.
There's always drone work. Yeah.
So what's the project?
This is about a Burmese activist filmmaker who came here and was rushed out of Burma, and he brought a lot of footage with him. So that's interesting, and he will participate. He'll be part of the filmmaking team. So I really like
partnership.
That. It's a partnership, yeah. So it's very different, and I really like that.
And where are you in that process?
We've shot about maybe a quarter to a third of it, and we've started editing a little bit.
And so I've got to ask, is that something that takes 4 years?
Yeah, probably. Maybe longer, because this is going to be, it's very slow to get going. Yeah, we'll see.
So how do you, I'm sure this question's being asked out there, how do you make a living doing this?
Yeah, so can we skip over that question? That makes my wife really
I was going to just say, and you also live in a very expensive city.
Yeah. I mean, we are close to retired, and so it's just like wanting to give back kind of time for me. And I love this project of bringing these. I love the diversity, what diversity gives to this country, and has for so many years.
So from your perspective, why is it important that he's here?
Well, I think it's really important that students who are in hands-on programs like ours learn from practitioners. And what we've done forever in this program is brought practitioners to the college to teach students how to do the work, whether it's how to write, how to paint, how to play music, or how to make films. We always bring practitioners in because they're the ones who can give students the real education on how you do this in this particular craft or art.
You want to tell everyone again, when can they go see this?
Utica, The Last Refuge, is going to be shown at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 23rd at the Auburn Public Theater.
So this Thursday?
This Thursday, and it will be followed by a question and answer session with Loch Phillips, the director of the film.
And how many more times are you going to be here on campus?
I'll be here definitely for the end of the semester. I hope to come 2 more times.
Okay.
And I'm doing a lot by Zoom.
And will you also be at the production that's at APT where they show these documentaries?
Yeah, I plan to be there for that. Yeah.
When is that roughly?
And that will be on May 10th.
May 10th, when the semester ends.
Yes, it'll be the last week of school.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming to Auburn.
Thank you.
And this is great to have you, and looking forward to seeing the film on Thursday night. Loch Phillips, the film documentarian, has been our guest, as well as the director of the telecom program here at Cayuga, Professor Steve Keeler. Thank you both, and we encourage you to go to the Auburn Public Theater on Thursday to watch those shows. You can tape the Thursday shows that we do on your DVR. We'll be back with 3 Beyond the Front Page shows. The first one featuring Tyburn Academy Principal Connor O'Donnell and seniors Matthew Leary and sophomore Madeline Wyrick to talk about Tyburn Academy. We'll then have the Gavra Center's Executive Director Danielle Wright and Community Liaison Bob Padula to talk about the Gavra Center and give us an update on what's going on there. And then we mentioned refugees and immigrants, but our third show, which was supposed to be last week, but we had a snowstorm. You wouldn't know it if you walked out right now. Will be with Father Vasil Kopanik of St. Peter and Paul Ukrainian Church in Auburn, with the Ukrainians Oleon Obrovna and Marian Sovrin to discuss the war in Ukraine, which we've mentioned is about a year old with the Russian invasion. They'll talk about what Ukrainians are doing here in Auburn, but also how Auburn and Cayuga County is helping to give aid to Ukrainians in that war-torn area. In the coming weeks, we'll be back with Cayuga County District Attorney Brittany Antonacci. We'll also have City Manager Jeff Dygert in. We'll get a budget update from Jeff Perazzola from the Auburn School District and Business Manager Lisa Green, who will talk about the budget that will be before voters in May. And then we'll also have the day before their documentaries are all judged and shown on May 9th, the Auburn School District Forum that we have here in the studio on May 9th. If you'd like to send us some ideas for questions for any of the guests that we have, you can send them to cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Keeler Community College. Thank you for watching. Remember to go see the documentary on Thursday, and we will see you back here in the studio on Thursday night.